Guys, I'm Shady Guy Steven.
This is Shady Guy in Black Clothes.
And today we'll be doing a horror story reaction. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's see.
We got a special guest today.
Yeah, we have a special guest today.
His name's Tito.
Yeah. Here, good look at him.
Good looking.
Isn't he cute?
Looks like the gold chicken legs.
Isn't he cute? Look at him. Aww. Look. But let's get into it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Remember, get your blankets. Get your dog if you have some. Let's get it.
I had just gone through
Popcorn.
a pretty rough divorce a few months ago. For the brief 2 years, my ex and I were married. Most of our nights ended up turning into shouting matches and insults. We were always so loud we had gotten several noise complaints, and an eventual ultimatum that we would be thrown out of the building. Anyway, we ended the whole thing, and she got most of everything. The house belonged to her family along with most of everything in it. She let me only have my clothes, some photos, and my dog, Riley. I was short on money at the time.
That's
Luckily,
one derpy dog.
a friend of mine let me stay in his home for as long as I needed.
Yep.
While
That
there,
dog is 2D and
I was
stiff.
looking for a better paying job to help me get my life back
Look at that.
at the time.
He's
Luckily,
stiff. Stiff as a rock.
Nothing better than a taxidermy doggo.
That's better than a dog that can float on air. He walks on air. He breaks gravity and physics.
A friend of mine let me stay in his home for as long as I needed. While there, I was looking for a better paying job to help me get my life back on track. My search led me to an opening for a campus security guard at the local community
Bro, this is some FNAF stuff. Join the security guard.
college. I arrived at the interview to learn that this job was for the night shift. I wasn't too sure about taking the job at first, but my bills and growing debts weren't going to pay off themselves. Needless to say, I started the next night. The campus itself was a decent size, both in terms of area and the number of students. The core campus includes 14 educational and auxiliary buildings. The security office was by the south entrance of the college, situated on the second floor of the parking garage.
Don't ever be anything less than
Technical difficulties, we'll be right back.
James and
Not
Darnell
technical,
walked
not
me through
technical
my job
difficulty. It was just an
description.
ad.
My task every night was to complete 2 full searches around campus, checking all the buildings and monitoring the security cameras. My shift would start at 9:30 at night and go through 6 o'clock in the morning, by which time I'd take the bus home. The job itself wasn't too bad. I kind of developed a friendship between James and Darnell, since there was a brief period
Which one is James and which one is Darnell? The real questions.
of time our shifts would overlap. By the time they both left, it would be midnight for me, and I'd be alone on campus. It's surreal how such a place that's bustling and full of students can quickly empty out and turn silent. When my shift starts, there's usually a few cars left in the lot for those who took evening classes.
Imagine taking evening classes. Oh.
Some of the instructors and other staff would sometimes work extra late, but those instances were rare. In short, my interaction with other people besides my coworkers was almost non-existent. Sometimes on a break or in between circuits, if it stayed quiet on campus, I'd read a book or listen to spooky stories on my phone. After listening, I would start to feel a little creeped out for being in a campus all alone after dark. But I got used to it. It killed the boredom until I started my next circuit. I wouldn't find much of anything out of the ordinary aside from the random object left behind by a student,
Take his
which I would
wallet.
bring back to the lost and found. I just had to make sure no one else was hanging around after closing. After coming back, I would check the security footage in case I missed something. There were a few screens recording specific spots with the most activity during the day. One for each parking lot, one for each floor in all the buildings, and one for the administrative office. I got decent pay every couple of weeks. After a while, I moved out of my friend's house and got a small apartment, and was saving up for a used car. I felt like my luck was starting to turn around, finally. Then, I had the scariest experience in my life. I was left alone around midnight, like always. The campus was absolutely deserted at this time, like normal. It was summer during this time, so the night was pretty warm. I felt like I was building a bit of sweat in my security uniform while doing my first circuit. I came back to the security office after finding nothing of note and checked the camera feed. I found nothing in any of the screens until I checked the one for the south lot near the office. While the screen was small, I could discern the moving of a large shadow across one of the lampposts. It was doing nothing but moving back and forth across the lot.
Let's know how this man is moving. This man is a menace. No one does that. Look at that.
Right. The shadow looked too large to be some small bird or animal. I deduced it had to be someone parked off screen, so I couldn't visibly see them. I went out there to check things out and found nothing. If it were a person just fucking around, they would have to have left a sign of their presence. There was nothing left behind. I didn't hear a car driving off or any noise for that matter. I scoped the rest of the south lot to find the sources of the shadow. Still nothing. I sighed in annoyance at the thought of some jackass deciding to waste my time. Nothing else happened the rest of the night. I got used to sleeping during the day, but all I could afford to sleep on was a cheap couch that was anything but comfortable. It was rare that I got a full 8 hours of sleep on it, and to top it off, the AC had crapped out. My cheap apartment had gotten warmer, making it much harder to sleep. I got to the college at the start of my shift,
That's tough,
with
but
maybe 5.5 hours of sleep. I had coffee, but it only lasted for so long. With it being extremely late, my office feeling cool, and it being quiet everywhere, I started feeling drowsy.
That guy reminds me of somebody.
Sleeping on the job wasn't allowed, of course, but every
Doesn't
now
mind
and
if you're following
then
your
I
dog.
let myself have a brief nap to refresh myself. So I set my head on the desk and fell asleep instantly. I was later jolted awake, a feeling of
But he has no shoulders. His joints are just sticking out.
something very wrong switched my tired mind on alert and woke me up. I rubbed my eyes and checked the monitors to see if anything was up. I looked at the camera feed for the south lot, and my eyes narrowed. Beneath one of the lamps, a person was standing. Not doing anything, just being very still. I couldn't make out any details, but this person had long black hair and looked very tall for almost reaching the light. I looked at the bottom of the screen and found the camera was still recording. Whoever the camera was showing was still there. The feeling that jolted me awake intensified, and I was aware of myself shaking. A chill, colder than the air inside the office, crept up my neck. My body was reacting to some sort of danger the image was giving off. Still, a weird person on the security footage was not an excuse to not do my job. I got to the lot in under a minute, and I saw the person still standing under the lamplight, just being dead still. Their back was facing toward me, and their head seemed to be bowed forward. As I approached closer and tried to get their attention, I found that this trespasser was very tall and lanky and was wearing a dirty white dress. I called to her again, asking if she needed help, but didn't respond. She just kept standing like a statue where she was. I reached out to touch her, and my hand retracted back from the burning sensation her skin gave off, as if she were on fire. I cursed and shook my hand to cool it off, and the lady moved for the first time. Her head lifted upward, as if finally acknowledging I was there. She turned around, and I started to track backwards. Her body was humanoid, but she had the head of a goat or ram. The fur was pitch black, contrasting against her pale skin and white dress.
Bro, just take a second to look at this. Is this a dude or a woman? I can't tell by this point. Real quick look. Got that dirty white gown. Or pale skin. It's almost as white as the dress. It's whiter than the dress.
The devil's brother.
Yeah, bro. It's a mix between the Rings girl and the devil by this point. I'm stuck staring at its nose. I can't get this out of my
I'm
head
stuck
now.
staring at its troll ears.
Yeah. It's like staring at its nose and its mouth. It looks like it has a mustache. Okay, let's start.
Her eyes were red like burning embers, and strands of flesh
What
hung
in
off
God's
its
name
curved
is that red
horns.
stuff?
As my backwards walk sped up,
He just said it was flesh. Human flesh.
I could hear it give off a deep, thunderous roar. I ran back towards the office, and I swear
It has human toes, but it runs like a goat. You see in detail. It's not really no human.
I could hear this thing sprinting after me. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, and I barricaded myself in the security office. For good measure, I switched off the lights inside and called 911. I told them something was on campus, and they sent someone over. I hung up and strained my ears to hear any noise outside my office. It was hard to notice anything other than the pounding of my heart working overtime. It felt like an eternity before I heard the knocking at the door. The cops notified their presence, and I slowly opened the door. They questioned me about what I called for. When I told them, they looked at me as if I were a mental patient or a drug user. I played the footage back for them, and there the thing was. At the very least, they weren't going to arrest me for making an emergency call. But with the trespasser gone, there wasn't much they could do. They left, and I was once again alone. This time, I was very afraid. Not that I was alone, but afraid that I wasn't alone. And that thing was still out there. I wasn't taking any chances. I waited in that office and kept the door locked until the end of my shift. I left a note saying I resigned immediately, and I never went back.
Nice.
Try our spicy Cajun chicken with Cajun seasoned
Yes,
grilled
try
chicken
spicy
breast.
chicken.
Only Firehouse Subs.
But anyway.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next Shady Bros video.
That'll be the end. Goodbye.